Welcome to The Married Therapist,
a relationship podcast
hosted by us, Luis and Amber Simide.
This podcast is all about love, conflict, and the gray areas.
If you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome back. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the honeymoon phase, how we define it, where we are, and then we're going to wrap it up talking about a Reddit story with the same topic of the honeymoon phase. So you want to kick us off? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think the honeymoon phase is very real. I think every couple experiences that the first few weeks, first few months. It's just like this fireworks. Everything is great. There's no wrong the person can ever do. Kind of looking at everything with rose-colored glasses. I think it's very real. And I think sometimes what looks like the honeymoon phase for one person might actually just be health. So I think it's easy for people who may not be in a healthy relationship or may not be in a happy relationship to see happy couples specifically at or near the beginning of their relationship and say like, oh, you're just on honeymoon phase. Just wait until X, Y, and Z. And I know we got that a lot, even in the wedding planning process. People are like, oh, how long have you guys been together? And, when we had been planning for the wedding, it had been anywhere from 6 months to a year and some change throughout that engagement process. And people were like, oh, just wait until you guys hit 5 years or just wait until you whatever. And honestly, I feel like people get out of a relationship what they put into it. So if you are constantly dragging each other, constantly at each other's throats, constantly giving low blows, yeah, you're going to be miserable. And so to see a happy couple, it can be easy to be like, oh, my relationship is crazy. And so their relationship is going to be crazy. It just hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah. Sheer projection.
Yeah, projection, 100% projection, because that's what's happening in their life. They think it's going to happen in everyone's life. But I have seen so many stories of couples who have been together for 15, 20 years that have this incredibly healthy relationship that people would look at them and think they just got married. And it might be abnormal, unfortunately, but just because it's not normal doesn't mean it's not real. Right. And so I think people see something as, okay, the norm is everyone fights, everyone has these drag out, blowout fights, but just because it's normal doesn't mean it's right. And just because it's abnormal doesn't mean it's wrong. Right. So that's kind of where I come from when it comes to all of that. And I can go on and on about more of that. But how would you define the honeymoon phase?
Yeah, just as this idyllic, wonderful unicorn and rainbows phase of your relationship
Yeah.
where you're laughing and having these incredible experiences and you're making out and the passion is just 10 out of 10 and you truly have the best feeling.
Yeah.
Constantly. You're filled with joy. It's this thing that's just kind of bubbling up within you of just goodness and wholeness. Yeah, so all that occurs in the beginning a lot of the times in relationships. Probably I would say a couple of months. But yeah, that being said, it doesn't mean that has to end with a couple. Now, at the end of the day, if you're constantly being like wined and dined and taking all these trips and buying all these gifts, will that dissipate? Probably, yeah. But I don't think it has to all go away.
Right.
And I think for a lot of people, it does because you're trying to impress and you're trying to put your best foot forward and kind of sometimes people put a mask on.
Right.
So I know someone once said, when I'm dating, I allow people to meet my representative.
And then customer service voice on and everything.
And then when I'm good, I show up.
Oh my gosh.
Which is very manipulative.
Yeah. But it's so common, right? Like people, like you said, put your best foot forward, but it's like if your best foot is not the foot that you put forward every day, do not put that foot forward because that is not your real foot, right? So it's setting your partner up for disappointment. Because if this isn't who you are every day, do not present that version of yourself at the beginning. Because you're gonna want someone who loves you and falls in love with the real you and not this representative that you put forward. Because then you gotta be that representative forever, and that's not sustainable.
And what do we always say? Like, be you.
Yeah.
People can read through it, and sometimes people can't read through it, and that's what's scary,
Mhm.
is when your representative goes away and you show up, your partner's so confused
It's
because 'cause they're
like,
like,
"Who's this?"
"Yeah, who are you?" So, that's also what love bombing is. You're
Mhm.
bombing somebody with love, fancy trips and dinners and Cartier jewelry, and then all of it I know someone close to my life who did that, and it was really devastating for the person that they were with, and they said, without missing a beat, "Oh, I did that to get you. Now that I got you, I don't have to do it anymore."
Oh my
I'm like,
gosh.
"How bold."
The audacity to admit that.
Yes, to admit that, and they were already locked in, they were already
Yeah.
married, and so the person was just like, "Okay, um, cool." So, really, really difficult.
Honestly, it really does boil down to that. Be who you are from the beginning. Because I think there is this fear that if I am my true self, they're not really gonna like me. Then it's like, 1, either be better, or that's not your person, and that's okay. Not everyone is gonna like you, not everyone is gonna be compatible with you, and that's okay. That's the point of dating, trying to figure out who you're compatible with, who you're not. So if the real version of yourself is not someone that can get this other person, then that shouldn't be the person that you are with, right? So that's something that I know that you and I were really big on in our relationship, like, when we started. Like, I was exactly who I was then as I am now. I wasn't doing anything outlandish or crazy, and you weren't doing anything crazy either, like, you were exactly who you are today, and I think that has been one of the things that has been incredible and beautiful about our relationship, that we haven't changed because we are the same person today. And I will say, obviously, we're older, right? We were in our mid 30s when we got together. And so there was that level of maturity and that awareness to do that. But I think this can be something that anybody can do. Any teenager, anybody in their early mid 20s, this is something that's so important to start now because, again, yes, you're going to change. Like, that's a natural part of growing up and being a human. But if you start off your relationship being someone completely different than who you are, that's a whole different thing. Because there are natural things that will change, but your whole personality is not going to change. So I think it's important to kind of make that delineation.
And it definitely sucks because our society glorifies the person who has a lot of money, oftentimes the man
Hmm.
who drives the fancy car and is able to drop all this money on the woman and buying her
Hmm.
flowers all the time and gifts and again these extravagant trips. As women, a lot of us like that. We're
Hmm.
attracted to that, especially if this guy is tall and he has an incredible career. Forget
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And so if that's what we're seeing in movies and we're reading in books and TV shows, it makes sense why that translates to our dating
Hmm.
culture. And so for the guy who cannot sustain that lifestyle, it really sucks. But guys like that fake it. And that's
Right.
why, again, they kind of love bomb and send the representative. And then right when they reel the girl in,
Hmm.
then it stops and the girl's devastated, like, "What the heck?" And the guy's like, "I don't have enough money."
It's like, well, why did you present yourself as if you did?
Because what's he knows that that's exactly what was needed to get the girl
Right.
because of society or even just friend groups.
Yeah.
You gotta do this. I'm not that girl. I was always the type who was just like, I do not need to go to we have this place in town called Perry's Steakhouse, very expensive,
Yeah.
and you dress up and like, no.
Yeah.
I would be fine if we just got sandwiches and went to a park
Yeah. Go
and
to
then got I
Torchy's Tacos or,
yeah,
something.
Torchy's tacos, and then we got ice cream afterwards.
Yes, that'd be great. And that's our first date was at this little Indian restaurant. It wasn't even like a fancy sit down restaurant. You just go order at the counter and then you go sit down and then froyo. Like, that was our first date. It wasn't this sit down fancy restaurant and
And I told you that. So after chatting on Hinge for 3 seconds, I was like, "When are we gonna meet?" So we both decided that it would be the 4th of July, and then I just said, "Hey, you go ahead and plan it." And you were like, "Okay, do you have any suggestions or any restrictions or anything?" And I just was like, "Well, I'm vegan and I'm chill." And you were like, "Okay." So you ran with that and you
Mhm.
curated the whole day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't the type who was like, "It has to be."
Yeah, 4 stars on Google. Yeah, like, it's very and I love that about you, like, you are very chill, laid back, and don't get me wrong, I know you and I both love nice things every once in a while, but that's not who we are inherently. We just like to enjoy our life and spend time with each other, whatever that looks like. So, yeah, I think be the person that you can sustain, right? And I even have that same mindset when it comes to like food and dieting. Like if you cannot sustain this way of eating for the rest of your life, don't do it for 20 seconds because then it's just going to stop and then you're just going to go back to the way things were. So I have that approach to life in general, right? Just be who you are, do what's sustainable and live your life. Like don't be this person that you're not going to be forever. Don't eat this way that you're not going to eat forever. Don't, whatever. But anyway.
Yeah, and so going back to dating, for this person who's thinking, "Okay, I'm trying to be like this elite guy,
Mhm.
but it's not sustainable." To that, I would say, yeah, be who you are and know that you may not attract the masses, meaning all the women on the app may not swipe right on you, but there will be someone
Mhm.
eventually who will,
Yeah,
if that's meant to be. If you're meant to meet someone in real life, that's a different story,
right.
or in the wild. So it's just a numbers game. And so it's just kind of recognizing that,
Yeah.
having that radical acceptance of, I don't have this tricked out car. I don't have a private jet.
Yeah.
I'm not 6'4", making 7 figures. That's just not who I am. You know what? As an example, I'm a teacher. I have a Honda. I'm a good person, and I love museums and I really like Thai food. That's enough.
Yeah, I love Applebee's. It's like, okay, cool.
That you are more than enough. You are wonderful and incredible, and there is some person out there who
Mhm.
absolutely will love all of that and
Yeah,
is gonna want that, but you gotta put that forward. Like, do not lie on your dating profile
yeah.
and be somebody that you're not.
It's so wild to me that there are guys who legitimately lie about their height. Like, you put 6'4" and you are 5'10". It's like, I have eyeballs. Like, you're gonna meet this person eventually. They're gonna see that you're not 6'4". Like, why are you lying about your height? Anyway, that's a whole different situation. But yeah, I think being exactly who you are, it reminds me of there's a quote that says, "I would rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not." Right? And granted, we're not talking about hate here, but just falling in love with someone who isn't the real you is gonna have consequences going down the line. So, yeah, I think that's definitely the best way to go. Just be who you are. And like you said, your person is gonna be out there. You're not gonna have droves of people coming to you, and that's okay because the ones that will come to you are people who are attracted to the real you. And there's less pressure on you to continue this facade that you created for yourself, and you can actually be your real self. So, and I know there are people out there who are like, I don't have a lot to offer. It's like, well, I mean, that's your reality, and that's okay. Like, I'm not saying that you can't have aspirations to be something else, but do not present yourself as if you are that thing if you're not that thing yet.
I would say lean into your strengths. So if
Mhm.
you love flag football, if you love cornhole, go to those places. I know
Mhm.
the apps can be a wild place, and so look up the cool spots for cornhole in your area, the cool spots for flag football. If you love drinking wine, you're just really into, like, that whole world and being like a sommelier, like,
Mhm.
I know over here we have the hill country, and so we have a bunch of vineyards in this place called Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
So go over there, join the membership, start to talk to people.
Mhm.
That's how we can meet someone in the wild.
Yeah. And there's an app that I've talked to a lot of clients from when I worked with adults who had some social anxiety and things like that. There's an app called Meetup
Yeah,
that yeah, that you can it's an app where you can find people with mutual interests because realistically that's how people get in relationships. They have mutual interests and shared interests. And so you go to these different events, right, and find people that are interested in that thing, and it kind of breaks that first barrier because you know that you have this in common at least, and that's something you can talk about, right? So there are things that you can do to find your people, and tie this all the way back to honeymoon phase. Again, I think once you are honest about who you are and you meet someone who is honest about who they are, the connection is going to be seamless. The connection is going to be a lot more meaningful and a lot more real than if it's this honeymoon phase that's based on this false version of yourself. So, I think that's one of the ways that you can keep that honeymoon phase alive is continue to be the person that you've always been. Because if that's the person you fall in love with, that's the person you're going to stay in love with. Because
yeah,
there's no new person that's coming up after, you know, 3 months in.
right. There's no representative that's fading.
Yeah. And there's actually research out there that shows difference between honeymoon phase versus just healthy love. And there are several things I think there are like 6 different things that go into what makes it healthy love versus just a honeymoon phase. And so I'm just going to read them real quick. So if you are in that quote unquote honeymoon phase and it's been longer than average honeymoon phase is about 6 months to 2 years. It's pretty wide range, but that's kind of what the average honeymoon phase is. So if you want that honeymoon phase to last longer than those 2 years, there are some things that you can do. So one of the things is that secure attachment. So there's attachment theory, the different types of attachments, right? There's anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, secure attachment. So if you are both in that secure attachment, that can definitely lead towards a healthier relationship that can feel more like a honeymoon phase. The second thing is intentional effort. This goes with any relationship, not even just romantic relationships, but every relationship requires intentional effort. Just like any plant out there, plants need watering, they need food, they need sunlight, basic things to live. Now, some need less than others, but they need it nonetheless. So I think with any relationship, having that intentional effort, putting forth that same effort that you were putting at the beginning of the relationship, knowing that just because you quote unquote got them doesn't mean the effort stops. So remembering that, keeping that thing going. The third thing is playfulness and novelty. Like just keeping the playfulness in your relationship. So I know one thing that we do fairly often, not as often anymore, just because I get like jumpy with it is we have to go fight sometimes. So, it's just like a fun thing that we do. I know we were in Cabo one time with your sister and we were having a tickle fight in the room and they were like, "Are you guys okay?" We're like, "Yeah, we're just having a tickle fight." Like, "Oh, okay." Anyway, so
Because sometimes it kinda turns into a wrestling match.
yeah, and we're like screaming and it gets loud and whatever. But anyway, so just things like that, like having fun, being playful, like playing board games, things like that. Like there are things that you can do to enjoy each other's company and just have fun together. The fourth thing is strong communication. And this is routinely the biggest issue that many couples have is just lack of communication. And this is a great thing for couples therapy. So if you see that you are just missing each other all the time or misunderstanding each other all the time, couples therapy is so important for that. And I think people think they have to be in absolute shambles just to go to couples therapy. They have to be on the verge of divorce. And honestly, at that point, I don't know that couples therapy will be beneficial. It's almost too late. I mean, it can be, but I do think couples therapy can be really helpful as a proactive measure once you start to see some of those things dwindling and you have that communication deficit and all of that. Because communication isn't a natural skill that a lot of people have, um, but it is something that it's so important to know how to communicate. So, strong communication can definitely keep that honeymoon phase going longer. And then the last thing is sexual connection, making intimacy a priority. Now, I know when people have kids, it's different, but I always like to say you will always have time for your priorities, right? You will always have money for your priorities. You will always have energy for your priorities. So, like anything that seems like a limited resource, which is all those things that I mentioned, you will have space for it if it is a priority. So what does that look like for you guys? So if you do have kids, maybe that's getting a sitter once a week just to have that time or after they go to bed or just, figuring it out.
Or waking up early.
Waking up early, yeah, or something like that, but
Or afternoon delight
yes.
before they get home from school if possible, or even during your lunch break if possible. Just kind of being creative, thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, I think sexual intimacy is so important for couples just in general, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Like it connects people on a different level. So if that is a priority in your life, that can definitely keep that spark alive to the point where it doesn't feel like a honeymoon phase anymore. It just feels like deeply rooted, healthy love, which I think is possible for anybody. It takes work and it takes intentionality with that. Now, does that mean that there are never any issues? There's no conflicts? Absolutely not. I mean, obviously, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be challenges along the way, but like we've mentioned in a previous episode with fighting fair, conflict does not mean fighting. Conflict does not mean all the arguing and all of that, right? You can have conflict, you can have disagreements and work through it and talk in a normal voice like this. And that's only possible when there is that foundation of trust, I think, for a lot of people. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing is a foundation of trust. And so I know I've been talking for a while. So do you have anything to add about that?
Yeah, I love everything you said, specifically that last piece of having that foundation of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yes, for you and I, we are able to handle conflict through normal conversation that resembles what we're doing right now. For a lot of people, they don't have that. They find themselves elevating their voice,
Mm-hmm.
cussing, going below the belt because they don't feel heard.
Right.
The person is invalidating what they're saying, dismissing, gaslighting. And so it's just this natural thing within them, a defense mechanism to
Mhm,
go ahead and present that way. I know when I was married, I did that.
mhm,
I wasn't cussing or going below the belt, but I certainly was raising my voice
mhm.
because he was raising his voice and I was just trying to match that
Yeah.
and never really got anywhere. But that was kind of the natural flow of things
Mhm.
because I wanted to just talk like this, but he wanted da 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 da.
Yeah.
And I just was like, okay, no, this
Yeah.
is weird. This isn't happening. And so I definitely wanted to call that out because that is
Mhm,
a privilege that not everyone has. And on that note, though, if someone finds themselves in that spot, that's an opportunity to assess and figure
mhm,
out, do we need to go to couples therapy or is this a situation that is cyclical that I feel like isn't going anywhere
mhm.
to where maybe I need to leave?
Right,
And that's a very hard decision in and of itself, especially more difficult if you have kids together,
right.
businesses together, all this shared history, your families are
A
intertwined.
home, like, so many different things that can be difficult to separate from.
Right. So then I would say, how about individual therapy so you can
Mhm.
process things? How about strengthening your social support? Have you told your best friend? Have you
Right.
told your mom or whoever it is that you're close with about what's going on? Because a lot of the times we keep things to ourselves. We're on an
Mhm.
island. I know a lot of people, especially in the black and brown communities, it's like you don't tell people your business,
Right.
which I understand on one level, but at the end of the day, community is really important,
Yeah.
especially when we're suffering and we're going through things. On that note, you don't have to tell them everything, but I think just kind of
Mhm.
opening the door, allowing just a little bit of light to come into the darkness can be really healing and life changing.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it can be so easy to just want to keep that within your 4 walls, keep your business with your family. And I understand that from a logical standpoint, but at the end of the day, we have to be honest about where we're at, and if you need help, you need to get the help, and that's okay. That's natural. People need help every once in a while. So, yeah.
Okay, now I wanted to kind of just segue and just talk about our dynamic and how that's perceived. We saw on social media where it said that the couple that post very frequently about really flowery, fun, romantic times is the couple who is in shambles. It's the
Right.
couple who is totally struggling and they're just playing a part. They're simply just kind of putting up a front that's not real.
Yeah.
And we wanted to just kind of speak to that.
Yeah, and Obviously, there are examples of that, right? Anecdotally, you can find many examples of that being true because there are couples out there who just want to show people that they are doing well when really they're not. But I know that's not always the case because we know couples, and we're one of them, where life really is great most of the time. I would say 95% of the time, right? And so I think when people look at others who are having a good time, who are having these fun moments, and think to themselves, that can't be really their life. What's really happening is kind of what we talked about earlier. A lot of times it's projection because their life isn't that way all the time. It can be easy to point the finger and be like, since my life isn't that way all the time, theirs must not be either. And that's just not reality. I think there are people who can have extremely healthy relationships. There are people who can have really healthy conflict resolution. There are people who can have really healthy marriages. And that's not a bad thing. People who find themselves on that end where they do have a healthy relationship, it can be easy to feel bad about posting your life so people don't feel bad. But at the end of the day, if people feel bad about seeing your life, they can make the choice not to look at it, right? Like it's the same thing like if you are on a weight loss journey and all you have on your social media are these dessert pages, it's like, should the people stop posting dessert? No, that's their page. They can do whatever they want. You can choose to not watch them, right?
Or content where people are in their bikinis,
Right.
or people are at the gym that have six packs.
Mhm.
You want that. You are envious of that. You're not there yet. And so that can be really triggering.
Yeah.
But are we gonna shame the person who's been working out for the past 10 years, who is really strict in a healthy way with the way that they eat and really is dedicated with
Mhm.
their exercise? Are we gonna shame them for that? We shouldn't.
Yeah.
Maybe at that time, it's best to not follow the food accounts and not
Right.
follow the fitness person and follow some other accounts until maybe you're ready to receive that at a different point in your life.
Yeah, because it can have 2 different purposes. So on one hand, those fitness accounts can be triggering and can bring shame to yourself, or you can allow that to be motivation for you to get in the gym. It can be motivation to eat healthy, right? And I think that's the same thing that can be true of content like ours, where it is this like fun, healthy, loving relationship. If you are watching that and you don't find yourself in that same boat, if it's triggering for you, by no means are we saying like just keep watching it because you do your life, right? Like if it's triggering for you, you need to do what you need to do to manage that yourself. But if you wanna see that as aspirational, use it as inspiration to do things differently in your own marriage. And obviously, you can't control the other person. All you can do is control yourself. So, if you need to change things about yourself, then do that. Use content like that to be motivation to make some changes in your life. If that's motivation to go to therapy, if that's motivation to be more intentional with date nights. So I think we can use things that aren't relatable to us to be motivation for us, or we can choose to not watch it. I mean, it's up to us. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's productive to tear down people or accounts or couples who don't do the things that you do just because it's different.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's important for people like us to know what we have and to
Mhm.
keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
I like what you said, 95% of our relationship is amazing, and so that's reflected in our content.
Mhm.
We do, though, have that 5%, and
Yeah.
for us, we talked about that 5%, which, to refresh people's memories, it would be the whole ADHD
Mhm.
situation, specifically with sex. Like, that has been a recurrent issue
Right.
that we've had, and we've hashed that out in individual therapy as well as couples therapy. We have not solved that issue. We've made a lot of strides, but we're still
Mhm.
working on that, and so that's a very real thing,
Yeah.
and are we gonna go into the nitty-gritty of all of that? No, but we have
Right.
been transparent by sharing that with people. That specific episode actually gained a lot of traction and
Yeah.
people appreciated that. So we definitely listen
Mhm.
to what the people wanna see and hear, and so we'll keep creating more content like that. outside of that, like, things are pretty good. And another thing too is, like, we've gone through so much.
Really?
Like,
Yeah.
both of us were in insane marriages before this, where we were just struggling
Mhm.
at all times. And
Yeah.
we got out of that, we got a lot of healing, and we met one another. So we are posting about all of this goodness because we are just so happy to be here.
Yeah.
It's what we've always wanted. We waited a long time for it. And so we're just kind of living it up. And I like to think, I know you mentioned the whole weight loss thing just now. And so let's say it's someone who struggled with their weight forever. And then all of a sudden they get on Ozempic and or not. They are dedicated in the gym and with their diet, and they lose a massive amount of weight,
Mhm.
and now they're at their dream ideal weight, and they are wearing crop tops and bikinis and whatnot, and they're posting it all over,
Mhm.
and people are just like, "Okay,
We get it, yeah.
can you put some clothes on? Can you" No, I worked so hard. I'm finally here, and so I'm gonna live
Yeah.
it up, and so again, if that's too much for someone, it's like, "Okay, well, maybe you can just not follow me." But you know what? That person probably has way more people who are fans and who
Yeah.
are just 100% supportive than the other people. So, baby girl, keep doing what you're doing for the end of time.
Yeah, really. And the nature of social media is you're gonna have people who have positive things to say and negative things to say. That's just the nature of the business, as they say. And we have definitely gotten a lot of positive feedback. A lot of people really resonate with our content. A lot of people see it as that aspirational thing because you do so often see these problematic, toxic relationships on social media. And that's just kind of the brand. And so it is refreshing sometimes just to see healthy couples. So, I know we've definitely gotten a lot of that too. And so, I will say that if this type of content is triggering for you, don't watch it. That's okay. But if it's inspirational for you, we would love to be that inspiration for you.
Absolutely. To tie it back to the whole honeymoon thing, you and I have been together for 3 years. And per the research, we're outside of that honeymoon phase. But I would say that we're very much still there.
Yeah.
It's because 'cause we're excited and we're happy and
Yeah.
we are intentional with going on dates. All the fun things that we post are not just for social media.
Yeah.
Before we joined social media, we were living this kind of life and have things kicked up, yes, especially for certain things that we're doing. Like in December, we did Vlogmas, so
Oh,
we
yeah.
were adding things on our plate to make sure that we had content for that. And for this whole summer series, we are intentionally adding things to our plate to make sure that we have content for that. But really, for the most part, they're just kind of organic things.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like the summer thing, we were always doing things in the summer anyway. So I think it's more so being intentional about filming the things that we were going to be doing anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And so I think it's just hard to believe for some people, but it's truly genuine and probably sounds like we're defending ourselves, but we just run the streets. And so honestly, you and I were kind of meant for social media just because before we even met one another, we
Mhm.
were always filming stuff.
Yeah.
We loved to post stuff.
My brother used to make fun of me of how many pictures I took of, like, food and just random stuff that I was doing. So, I mean, this has kind of been both of our lives since before we met each other.
I remember back in undergrad, which was for me '07 to 2010, I had a digital camera. I would be taking a bunch of pictures,
Yes.
and I had a little video camera at the time too. So it just actually, it's in our veins because both of our dads had the big old camcorder
Yes, on the shoulder.
back in the late '80s and all the '90s, so we were always being filmed as kids. So that just kinda translated to us growing up, getting social media, and doing our own thing, and so that's who we are. So it just really makes sense that we met each other and that we created content together before we officially became, like, content creators.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Yeah. Yeah. I have loved this journey with you, and I look forward to continuing it as our relationship continues to grow.
Yeah, me
So,
too.
okay.
Okay, now I'm gonna read the Reddit story that is about the honeymoon phase.
Ooh, yes.
So this title is How Alarming Is It Not to Have a Honeymoon Phase?
Mm,
Before anything else, I care for this man. I want the best for him and myself and don't know if that's what we are for one another. We, 32 female, 33 male, started dating 3.5 months ago. Went exclusive about 2.5 weeks in. He initiated and I went along with it, although I felt it was a tad too soon. We are very different in our hobbies and communication style and very similar in other ways. We've had two conflicts by now. Admittedly, one conflict was fueled by my own insecurities, and the second one was made worse by my impulsive reaction. I stormed out. I took responsibility for both, apologized, pointed my future actions in a similar situation, and worked through them in therapy. So both were solved with open conversation, future looking, and mutual choice to continue. He meets me where I am, even when he's uncomfortable, and I appreciate it very much. I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety throughout this relationship, also due to the difference in communication styles. I'm fearful, avoidant, he's secure. But I won't lie, having two conflicts in 3.5 months seems alarming to me. Between all of this, I feel like we haven't really experienced a honeymoon phase. No crazy click or flowing connection. It's like we've decided to learn to enjoy each other, like we both went, we're at that age. Many of the boxes are ticked. Let's make it work.
mm,
Don't get me wrong. I enjoy being around him. The sex is amazing. I feel very natural and comfortable. And he says he feels the same way too. But I don't feel inspired. No magic. Just two people who choose to be challenged by someone who not long ago was a stranger. So here we are, somehow very committed to having a good relationship, having difficult conversations, reflecting and growing. We've had many beautiful moments together, but I can't help but think that our connection is just a bit offbeat. Am I crazy to want to click when so much else is right? When I'm thinking about spending years over years with someone, dealing with all life brings, and I want to be in a partnership that shares deep understanding, what should you do?
there's a lot in there. Started from the beginning. So she already said that she just went along with it when he said that he wanted to be in a relationship, which already gets them misaligned, right? He's into it, she's not. And she didn't communicate that she wasn't quite ready. She felt like it was too soon. So starting there and then going forward, there's these conflicts that she's aware of, right? And I'm glad that she's aware that she's anxious avoidant because that definitely has implications for how they're communicating and how they're doing things. But I do think, and I wanted to mention this when we were talking about the honeymoon phase, sometimes that honeymoon phase doesn't really happen, and that's okay too. I think it seems like they have a lot of the core things that are required to be a healthy relationship. And it's not this fireworks and sparks and all of that. And at the end of the day, love is a choice, right? You are choosing to love someone every day. Now, I will say, just because you don't have this spark, I would be curious to know what that spark would look like for her, because it seems like everything is going well with them. They had the two conflicts, but the sex is great, their connection is great, all of that's going well. But I wonder what she feels she's missing, right? Like, what does that look like?
She called it the magic and the crazy click, flowing connection. So, this just larger than life, exuberant, fantastical, dopamine fueled experience.
Yeah, and I do feel like media does us a disservice because I think that's what people come to expect with every relationship. And I don't know that that's reality. And I might be alone in this, but I tend to think that every relationship is different. And just because you don't have that huge fairy tale moment where you just feel like everything is the moon and the stars and all of that doesn't mean that it's a bad relationship. So what are your thoughts on that piece of things?
It actually reminds me of the reel that we just posted about how oftentimes we feel like the boring thing
Mm,
is wrong and bad because we're so used to the chaos
right.
and the turbulence. At the end of the day, she's got peace,
Mhm.
they've got clear communication, great conflict resolution, introspection. That all is good.
Yeah.
That is not bad, and she's not saying it's bad, but she's just kinda wondering, "Are we missing the honeymoon stage?"
Mhm.
But I would say, "Okay, let's recognize what you have," and then I would say, practically, what can you do? Are you
Right.
guys the type that all you do is kind of Netflix and chill? If that's the case, change things up.
Mhm.
So, go to the local museum,
Mhm.
try out that new Vietnamese restaurant.
Right.
Go to that outdoor movie theater,
Mhm.
look things up, put forth effort there. Find a recipe you've always wanted to make and then make it
Mhm.
and make that a competition. Maybe make the same meal twice, or one person makes the entree, the other person does the dessert, and text your friends or go on social media and have people vote for you. Like, think
Mhm.
outside of the box to
Yeah.
kind of jazz things up. I think that's how you can get the click. That's how you can get that magic, but it's not just gonna happen.
Right.
And maybe both of you guys are like that, so it makes it even more difficult.
Mhm.
And so I would just say, like, "Hey, I'm kinda wanting," be honest. "Hey, I'm kinda wanting to shake things up a bit," and maybe finances is an issue. Hey, there are a ton of free things that you guys can
Yeah,
do.
for sure.
You can go stargaze, you can have dinner at home and then go stargazing
Mhm.
and talk about your favorite childhood memory
Yeah.
while eating a popsicle. Like, if you are intentional, you can make it work, and I think you can change the tide in your
Mhm.
relationship.
Yeah, for sure. And at the end of the day, they're in their 30s. So I think a lot of times when people see this spark, all of this excitement, it's when people are in their teens, early 20s. And I feel like that's naturally how people are at that age. They're just like giddy. But if you are established and you are a little bit older, that may look a little different. It seems like they might be a little bit more mature. I don't know. You also have to look at their personalities. Like if that's just not naturally their personality, then she might have to manage her expectations. It's like, is this a guy who will behave in a way that I would deem appropriate for a honeymoon phase? Or is this his personality? He seems like he's a very secure guy, a very simple guy. I mean, I don't know. She didn't say much about him other than he's secure. But I can imagine it's a very simple guy who's fine with the simple things in life. And for her, it doesn't feel like that exciting thing that you'd mentioned that people are used to when they have these like toxic relationships where it is all of that craziness at the beginning. But yeah, it's definitely worth doing what you've said, just trying different things, creating that spark. Because yes, the honeymoon phase a lot of times happens naturally, but sometimes you have to create that. And if after creating it, you don't feel that connection, maybe you can reassess things at that point. But I don't see anything in this relationship that would be a red flag at this point, right? They had conflict that happens in relationships. She recognized her part to play in it. That's awesome. And she made a commitment to not do those things again. But I think beyond those two things, it's been 3 months and it seems like there's been no major issues. So I think that she's maybe reading into things and having the expectation of her ideal version of a relationship versus what her reality is.
Yeah,
Right.
and I would check in with your nervous system. It's
Mhm.
something we've posted about a bunch. How do you feel? Do you
Yeah.
feel peace? Do you feel content and settled? If that's the case, again, let's lean into that
Mhm.
because that's everything. There is a chance you never felt that in the
Right.
past because your amygdala was just firing off all the time in these other relationships, which is not healthy.
Mhm.
High
Yeah.
cortisol levels, sometimes you can even have physical health issues. Being on edge, not being certain, not okay. And the thing with those situations that really suck is that oftentimes they come down and then there's this crazy makeup sex.
Yeah.
And obviously that's fueled with adrenaline and dopamine and oxytocin and all these feel good chemicals. And that can throw you off because you could think, okay,
Yeah. Things are great now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Until there's another blow up 2 seconds later.
Yeah.
So for her, if that's the case, girl, you're off that hamster wheel. You're in something that's beautiful and wonderful. And yeah, I think it's a fairly simple fix.
Mhm.
Again, these are strangers, so we have no idea
Yeah.
the whole context, but just off of face value, it could be a simple fix by changing things up. That reminded me of a creator couple that recently posted a reel where they did a book crawl. So
Mm.
they grabbed a book and they went to their favorite coffee shops. They got scones and drinks, and what they did is they set a timer for 20 minutes and they read, and then that was it. I don't know if they discussed it, but in the video, it's just showing them go to about 3 or 4 different ones and just saying, like, "Happy Saturday." So,
Yeah,
you're literally reading a book with your partner and drinking a latte and a scone, and that's their date. That is so fun for them. So,
yeah,
if I'm saying this to say you can think outside of the box, it doesn't have to be dinner and a movie kind of thing. You can hopscotch together
yeah.
and eat a hot dog.
What a random date. But yeah, that'd be great for some people.
It's any and everything. Google is free.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was actually wondering with her attachment style being an anxious avoidant or fearful avoidant, I wonder if this is kind of a self-sabotage for her because she notices that they are getting close and that makes her afraid and she wants to avoid it, but then that anxious part of her is wanting to get close still, and so there's that back and forth that's characteristic of that anxious avoidant. So, I wonder if that's at play here too.
Yeah, I would guess yes. And so individual therapy would be great
Yes.
for her to process things.
And Reddit is great. You can get a lot of great feedback there, but I think a therapist would be, great for this for her.
Yeah, so she can compare this relationship with all the other relationships she's been a part of and go back to childhood because so often that's really helpful, but especially when it comes to attachment, that's where
Mhm.
it forms. There's a chance you maybe had inconsistent caregiving, you weren't getting your core needs met, and so that's why you are the way that you are in your relationships. So if she does the deep internal work, I think she can start to move her way to a secure attachment,
Mhm.
and so they both can be able to both be securely attached and have a good life.
Yeah, and I don't know if she's ever been with someone who is securely attached. My guess is maybe not, because when you're with someone who's securely attached and you are this anxious avoidant, this securely attached person can feel boring. It's like, what? I don't know how to deal with this. So yeah, I would be curious to know what her past relationships have looked like and then what their attachment style was and how that has played into her current mindset in this relationship.
Yeah. But we wanna know what you guys think. We shared all of our thoughts, so drop your comments below. Please be sure, as always, to subscribe, to like and follow, and share this with someone who you really think could benefit from listening to this episode.
Yeah, appreciate you guys for listening. Catch you next time.
Bye.